Good morning, everybody. Welcome to ACSS Live. This is, we didn't do one in January, but we are doing one now, February 2025. We try to do these once a month, and I don't know, I haven't decided yet this year if we'll combine this with frames. I'm not intending to do, hold on, we're about to get double audio. Let me pause this video. Okay. I haven't decided if we're going to combine these with frames. I didn't intend on doing anything with frames really today, but when we get to the open Q&A portion of the live stream, you can definitely ask questions about frames if you have frames related questions. Okay, let's say hi to some people. We got Sylvia in the chat. We got WP Dev, Gier from Switzerland. I think that's how you pronounce it, maybe. Why do I always forget I'm waiting for a live to start and get jump scared? Let's see. Charlie Sasser in the house. Ready to learn more. Excellent. David Walls is here. Klaus, Steve, good to see you. DeHunzi, always good to see you. Derek in the house. RJ. We got Case, Rob. This is fantastic. Okay. We got a good showing. What we're going to do is we're going to pretty much jump right in. The goal of these live streams is to review some of the latest stuff, to get you comfortable with using features that maybe you haven't dove into yet, right? Like, obviously, software evolves. New features come out all the time. People get comfortable with a certain aspect of the software, and they hyper-focus on that aspect, and that brings them a lot of value. But they may avoid new things because they feel like they don't understand it, they haven't seen it, they can't keep up with it. Whatever the excuse may be, we do these live streams to help introduce you to these new features, to help you explore these new features and understand that not just the feature, but what it can do for your workflow, the problems that it solves for you. All of these features exist for very important reasons. And some of them may not be useful on every project. But when it is needed, you want to know it's there and you want to be comfortable with it so you can say, oh, I know ACSS solves that problem for me. I don't have that problem on every project, but I know when I run into that problem, I know ACSS solves it for me. And you don't have to necessarily know how it works out of the box. But you know it exists, and you also know, by the way, which we're going to take a look at in just a second, that it is documented in detail, so that when you do need to use it, you can just go read the documentation. You don't even have to watch a video. There's probably going to be a video associated with it as well, but you don't even have to watch a video. You can just read the documentation, and then you can just follow the steps, implement the thing, and get the value out of it, right? But it does help to do these live streams just to familiarize you with this stuff. You know, we don't want it to be a tool where you use 30% of it and ignore the other 70%, because everything is there. There's no fluff features in automatic CSS. Everything that's there has a very important reason for existing. And the more you know, and the more you learn it, and the more you use it and deploy it, the better off you're going to be in the long run in a lot of different ways. Okay. Let's see. Yes, Marcus says, do not forget to like. That's correct. The streams do not like themselves. You actually have to click the like button, and I really appreciate it when you do. Okay, so the first thing that we're going to take a look at, I've brought this up many times before. It was published actually back in December, but I do want to put this out there. If you have not read this article yet, I highly, highly, highly recommend you read it. Okay. It detailed our journey to bug freedom at the end of 2024, at least for things that were reported. Okay. But it also detailed our focus for 2025, namely our focus on stability, on simplicity, and on support. And then I go into more detail on what that actually means, what that actually looks like, different policies that we've put in place. So if you haven't read that yet, it's not super long. I would highly recommend that you read it. That's number one. And I put the link in the chat so you can click and get there directly, okay? Number two, end of 2024, we solidified our documentation. The entire framework is documented in detail. The screenshots have all been updated. Everything is up to date. And we put a policy in place where no new feature can be released unless it is fully documented first. And no feature can be updated in an official release unless its documentation has first been updated. So if you are wondering how does this feature work? What are the details of this feature? What do I need to know about this feature? Please know that the documentation exists. It is there, it is up to date. Go there first, check that first, and see what it says and follow direction. And of course, if you still have questions or challenges or problems or whatever, that's when you go to the community and you post in the community and you ask for help there, okay? So that is the process that we recommend that you go through. By the way, you can ask questions at any time during the stream as long as it has #Q so that I can find them later. I am not gonna go back in the chat and try to dig up questions. If they have #Q, they will be found, they will be answered. All right, so we did documentation. We'll leave that up too because we're gonna use it, okay? And then we have that blog post, which I believe I can close. Next, Etch. Etch is gonna be launching again March 2025. And I had a long thread essentially explaining this and announcing it, but we don't have to get into all the details, just know. And this, as we get closer, and the reason we're doing this, March, April, May, somewhere in there, I'm aiming to be able to start like shifting all of my content from bricks to Etch. Like when I do tutorials, they will be done in Etch. When I teach, that'll be done in Etch. When I demo, that'll be done in Etch, okay? And as you probably could have guessed, with Etch being our new flagship builder, right? All of the innovation on the ACSS side of things will be done for Etch first. Then it will trickle out to the other builders, but it will be done for Etch first. So you have to, I would understand that, okay? And if you haven't gotten into Etch yet, like, you know, you should probably go read these testimonials from early adopters here. Everything is going swimmingly, and it's getting very exciting. So if you're not in, you should be in. And if you want the best ACSS experience possible, that is gonna be happening in Etch. So I would get on that, okay? All right, so that is done. Let's close that out. That is etchwp.com, by the way. We can close that window. We don't need it. And this brings us into bricks and the latest ACSS features that we're gonna be talking about. So we're gonna jump right in. We're gonna start maybe easy, flashy, and then we'll get into some of the more detailed stuff, okay? First things first is auto button styling. Auto button styling. So I'm gonna go ahead and I'm just gonna drop in a button right here. And I want you to notice that that is not a bricks button. That is an ACSS button, okay? I did not have to put button primary on it like you've seen me do in the past. I'm gonna go ahead and click on this and I'm gonna show you the drop down now for style in here. I can do primary light, I can do primary dark. So these are my options. These are directly syncing with the buttons that I have active in the ACSS dashboard. I don't have neutral active. I don't have any other secondary. I don't have any other buttons active. It's only showing me the buttons that are active on the website. I can change the size of the buttons as well, which is very nice from right here. I don't need to use utility classes for this. And then you can go to the outline variant as well with the click of a switch. So now you can essentially add all of your buttons and not have to worry about adding utility classes to every single one. It is styled automatically and controlled with the bricks options in the panel right here. If you want to get to this, you're going to go to options, you're going to go to bricks enhancements, and then you're going to choose bricks UI for buttons. If that is activated, if it's not activated yet, I would activate it, save, refresh the builder, and then what we essentially do is remove all of those bricks default button styles because nobody uses them that's using ACSS. And we replace them with the button styles that you have activated in ACSS. So it's always relevant to your specific ACSS install. Very, very easy workflow enhancement for you to turn on and start using, okay? So that is number one. Let's check that off. See, easy, right? Easy, out of the gate, very simple. Flip a switch, and now you don't have to put utility classes on all of your buttons. Fantastic, okay? All right, let's do another one. We'll do isBG, okay? So I'm gonna go ahead and clear this out. Let's just add a section here. And let's do a little height action, okay? So notice I'm just making this section a bit tall. I wouldn't recommend doing this. I'm just doing it for demonstration purposes, okay? I'm gonna go ahead and put an image in here. Now, there are times, and we'll do a little pop quiz. How about we do a little pop quiz? There are times when you need to use the CSS background image property. And there are some times where you want to take a real image and position it in the background. Does anybody know? Here's the pop quiz. You can write it in the chat, write your answer in the chat. When do we choose which one to do? When do we use the CSS background image property? And when would we not want to use the CSS background property? And while you guys answer that question, I will go ahead and I will throw a photo in here. So this is a real physical image, okay? And I will say that it's gonna be full 1920 resolution. All right, let's see. Derek says, etch seems very much like a page builder. I called it. I don't know what you called. If you go to etch, I would highly recommend you do this too. Go to Etch WP and click on this thing that says, is etch a page builder? And read this. Very important to read that. Okay, Justin says, when you want the image content alt tag, doesn't need to be red. Stan says semantic purpose. Okay, all right, there's gonna be some answers rolling in. I'll just go ahead and tell you because we have to move on. So if the image is purely decorative, and this is what looks like, I guess, Manolis, is that how you say your name? When the image is for decorative purposes only. So if it's purely decorative, okay? Now this image, you could argue, is purely decorative. It really depends on the context, right? If I was selling a trip to this place, whatever this place is, then it's not purely decorative. People need to know that image exists. They need to be able to see it, index it, all that stuff, right? In that case, it would be a real image. If it's just a feels, I just want to create a vibe here, like it's just purely decorative, then I can just put it CSS background image, be done with it, whatever. But if you want it to be indexed, if you want it to have an alt tag, if you want it to be read by screen readers, if you want to lazy load it, there's a lot of different reasons why you might use a real image instead of a background image. The problem is there's no way to like make this the background image of this section unless you know a bunch of fancy CSS, right? Or you can just come in here now and you could just say is BG. So you're just saying this is the background, is BG. That's how you can remember it. Very, very short, very, very sweet. Pop it on there. It is now the background image of that section. It is still a real image. It is not using CSS background image property. It is taking that real image and it is just sticking it in the background and it's making sure that everything else that you put in this section is gonna be layered on top of it. You can layer is BGs as well, okay? So you can put a div in here, for example, right? And I can take that div and I can give it a background and I might do like, let's say primary trans 80, okay? So I give it a background of the primary color, 80% transparent, all right? And then I'm gonna take that div and I'm also going to is BG it and suddenly I have an overlay. And you can do this an infinite amount of times. And everything that you is BG will stack on top. It's basically gonna follow the DOM order here. But any other content that you have in the section is automatically gonna be on top of it, okay? Because of the way that we're handling Z index. So it's never gonna cover up your actual content. It's always just going to put stuff in the background and it's gonna layer those things according to their DOM order. All right, so I can easily come in here and just name this and say, okay, this is my overlay. And of course you could have gradient overlays, image overlays, you have this guy made it a div, like I have full control over filters and opacities and whatever else you wanna do to this stuff. But this is very, very, very quick, very easy, solves a very common problem. You can use this wherever you want. Rob says, isBG is my new favorite CSS class. Been using it regularly since learning about it. Good, excellent, I love it, okay? So again, that is, now let's go, do I have to turn that on is a question, right? So if you go to options and you go to utility classes, this is part of the background, I believe it's in the background colors classes family. So as long as you have like the background colors turned on, isBG will be available for you as well. Okay, let's go ahead and clear that out, and let's check that off the list. By the way, just to, demonstrate here, okay? Again, I would, I'm kind of glossing over some of this stuff, just showing you, but if you go search is BG, right? This is, it's documented in detail. All the things you need to know to properly use this utility. Is BG and fade outs or something I was regularly doing manually before? Yeah, I actually didn't even have fade outs on my list, but that might be a good thing to explore as well. Can you control the Z index afterwards? That's a good question. Okay, let's take a look. So we're gonna go in here. We're gonna inspect, okay? We have div right here. So everything in automatic CSS as a principle is pretty much tokenized. So you can actually, and I actually posted this on a version of this on Twitter, asking people what they would their reaction to when they see CSS like this. But essentially what we've done is we use dummy placeholder variables. I'm probably gonna do an article on dummy variables, okay? But we position it with a dummy variable with a fallback of the real value that we want, okay? But what this does, one of the advantages is the specificity of this class is actually irrelevant because the variable is the primary value, but it has no value. So it's falling back to what we wanted it to be as the default. But when you go to change it, you can change it with essentially any level of specificity because it technically has not been set yet. Okay, so you have control of the position, the inset, the width, the height, the radius, the Z index. All of these things are controllable using these dummy variables. So all you have to do is, wherever you want to write that CSS, you can do it at the element level, page level, class level, whatever, global. You can set these values and you have full control over every instance of these overlays. You can also set them independently. Like I added a div, so that div's gonna have an ID. So I could attach the variable values to the ID and it means I'm only affecting that one single overlay, right? Or that isBG instance. So yeah, isBG doesn't work if the image is a figure. Let's check. One thing I will say is the way Bricks handles figure tags on images. Yep, okay, so you're seeing it, so we'll fix that. Let me actually log that real quick. Let's go, okay. Let's see, is BG compatibility with figure tags in Bricks, okay? Bricks has a love-hate relationship with how it lets you manage figure tags. It obviously creates a ghost DOM element that you have no control over, and then it itself doesn't even know what it's applying styles to. If you apply CSS, it applies it to the figure tag. If you apply data attributes to the figure element, it actually applies them to the image element. It's a mess. So these are, and this is why we need a flagship, one of the reasons why we need a flagship builder, so that we don't have these kinds of issues that we constantly have to work around. Okay, let's go ahead and create that. Sweet, okay. All right, let's take that off and go back. So that answers the question about variables and do I have control over the position, you even have size control if you don't want it to be full width for whatever reason. You didn't want it to be full width, but whatever. Does the section grow in height depending on the image height? No, the background elements, anything that has isBG on it is taken out of the flow of the document. It has zero effect on the height. You can have anything, like the height can be anything. If I remove that, it's gonna do this. It's gonna conform to whatever I decide to do. If I put section padding in here, let's say I go XXL with the padding or XL or S, like any of these padding changes, whatever's in the background is just gonna conform to whatever I happen to be doing at the time. Those were not the section padding classes, those are down here. So if I go XXL on my padding, for example, it just continues to conform to whatever I'm doing. Okay, let's see. Now that question about the vars fallback makes more sense. Yeah, that's not the only advantages. That's just one advantage, but yes. Okay, let's move on. So we did isBG, that's good. Let's talk about CSS first workflow in Bricks and improved CSS editing. Okay, so let's go to options. We're gonna go to Bricks again. Let's go to bricks enhancements, and we're gonna turn these two things off real quick because I wanna show you what it used to look like. What is the default in bricks, okay? I will go ahead and refresh the builder. All right, we will add a section, and I wanna write custom CSS for this section, okay? So I go to Style, and I have to go down here to get to custom CSS, and usually one of these panels is open too, by the way. So you can't even see where the CSS, you gotta close a panel in order to get to your CSS. You open the panel, and it's always open down here in the left corner. Let me turn my pro mouse on. So it's like confined to this area down here. You also have these two things in the way, which are not relevant to you writing CSS. This just pushes the box down even further. Then you have the problem of this box only being yay high, right? Not a really good, friendly place to write CSS. Now, we can't give you the experience we really want you to have. We can't give you the etch experience of authoring CSS, which is dramatically better. But what we can do is at least move this box to a more convenient place, and we can make it bigger because a bigger environment for writing CSS is better, okay? So the way that we're gonna do that is we're gonna go to our options, we're gonna go to our bricks enhancements. It's another very easy, simple thing. Now I'm gonna do these one at a time. The first thing I'm gonna say is, please improve my CSS editing, okay? So I'll save that. I'm not gonna do them both, okay? Because you may wanna do one and not the other, all right? So we're gonna go refresh. I'll have to add the section again because I didn't save it. All right, now we go to Style, I go to CSS. Now you see, okay, I have a much bigger area for writing CSS, and those two boxes that were up here pushing the CSS box down even further are pushed down below because you hardly ever use them. First of all, I don't even know why filters is in here with custom CSS. This is the CSS area. I don't know what filters are doing in here. I don't know what transition is doing in here. These should have their own areas. So, they're not even relevant all that much anyway. Like if you're gonna write CSS, you just write transition in this box right here. I don't know why you would put everything in here and then come down here and put a transition. That doesn't make any sense whatsoever. So it's weird. So just push it down. We don't need to see that stuff. We wanna see our CSS. So that's one enhancement that's very easy to do. The next one is you can go to options, workflow enhancements, bricks enhancements, and then go CSS first styling in bricks. I'm gonna save this. Now this is a bit more aggressive. If you're not comfortable writing CSS, one, you should go to the inner circle and start doing my CSS live workshops, okay? You will get your CSS up to speed very, very, very quickly. But second thing is, if you do like to write your CSS, I'm gonna click this, I'm gonna go to Style, look what's up here now. Okay, so it puts it first, because that's what a CSS first, it says, I prefer to just write CSS. What would the benefits of this be? Well, you're not hunting down inputs. You're not spreading your styles out all over the place. You are now able to use things like nesting. Okay, and I do wanna talk about, we'll go off on a little side quest to talk about the problem with breakpoints in page builders and how Etch is going to solve this problem, or how I foresee Etch solving this problem. But it's another problem related to custom CSS. Because if you're writing custom CSS, for example, I'm gonna say my grid. Okay, I wanna create a grid. Let's put some stuff in there. Let's just throw an image in there and we'll duplicate it a few times. And I'll show you the inherent problem that it drives me insane. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, so that we have 6 images in there. My grid, I wanna write my CSS, right? Which, by the way, I wanted to show you a little update that I've made. This will be in your next iteration of ACSS to recipes. And I kind of had a conversation with the team, and this was annoying me on the full site build that I'm doing. The original thought was to wrap everything in root for people, but that's not really the way you use a lot of recipes. Some recipes, you do want that to happen. They're much more involved recipes, but something as simple like grid, I typically already have my root selector ready. And when I say something like grid 3 and I expand this recipe, I don't want it to reroute it. I don't want it to add another root, like a root inside a root. Now it's nesting, and that's not what I want. I just wanted to give me the goods, like the thing that I was expecting to see, right? Which is the raw properties and values. And so I can do something like look at that. I don't have to write, that's so much writing. Display, grid, and then I can't, my fumble fingers half the time. I'm putting, erroneous characters in here that I have. And now grid, template, columns, over, look at that, see? Grid, even with var expansion, it's still a pain in the ass. Nobody wants to do this. Grid, now I'm only doing this for Safari purposes. That's annoying, right? These recipes really come in handy. Shortcuts. Hey, I want a grid 3. Bang, there it is. Done deal. If I want to change it to 4, I can. Like it's I can do whatever I want with it. So recipes now are going to expand, assuming most of the recipes are going to expand, assuming that you're working within an existing selector. Okay. So I think that'll be very, very helpful for people. But look, I want to make this responsive. I want to do something different at one of these other breakpoints, okay? Like this is the XL, this is the L, this is the M. So maybe at M is where I want to go to 2, right? So I can come down here and I can use another recipe. We're not even covering recipes right now, but this is an opportunity to demonstrate a lot of different things at once. But I can say breakpoint L, right? And when I expand it, it's going to give me the media query for my L breakpoint, whatever I have set in bricks and ACSS, right? And then I could do something like grid, template, columns, and I could say grid 2. So I'm just changing the grid, template, columns format, but I can't see it. I can't see what I'm doing. And this is the fundamental problem with every page builder in existence, as far as I know it. They're not set up this way. They're set up for you to click on that breakpoint and then do something there. They're set up for you to click on it and write new CSS here. But the problem now is, one, my CSS has now separated into 2 different locations. 2 is, you don't even know half the time where this, what you're gonna rely on this little tiny yellow dot up here. When you're working fast on the fly, you're trying to get a lot of stuff done, you're trying to move quickly and be efficient, trying to spot these little yellow dots and where they are and where the CSS has been placed. It's a nightmare. It's a nightmare. The canvas and this input have their own instances. And that's just terrible, in my opinion, right? If I'm writing a media query nested like this, I should be able to grab this canvas and just go to that breakpoint or click a little button, go to that breakpoint. But that shouldn't change my ability to write the CSS I'm trying to write. I'm writing the damn CSS right here. I just want to see what I'm doing. I don't want it to clear out my CSS and force me to write it in a completely different area simply because I wanted to see a different version of the website, at a different breakpoint. So Etch is going to independently control the CSS from the canvas. You can do whatever you want with the canvas and still see the same CSS you're working on, right? And so this is gonna make nesting much more powerful because you can finally see what you're doing with your nested CSS. And then, by the way, there's also gonna be dynamic breakpoints. I don't know what we'll call them yet, but if I shrink the canvas down to whatever, it doesn't even have to be a set breakpoint. It can be a custom value. It could be 764 pixels. Just pull something out of your butt. And I click a button and it writes a media query for me at 764 pixels. It just writes a custom one for me, right? So that's another thing that we're gonna be able to do. And it does it right here where all your existing CSS happens to live, because this is very valuable. This ability to nest media queries is insanely valuable to keep all of your CSS compartmentalized and organized. And you can see everything at a glance all at once. You can see the entire picture of what is going on with this little group of elements here, okay? All right, so that was a little side quest that we went on. What were we talking about in the first place? Yes, the CSS first workflow. Well, you're seeing it, right? It's like now I can just go here, I can write all my CSS. Some of it I don't even have to write, because if there's a recipe for it, I just pop in the recipe. Like auto grids. Auto grids are very complicated, okay? There's a lot going, auto grid is not a real thing in CSS. You have to engineer it, right? But I can just expand, look at that, that's quite complicated. But I can just get it in like 5 seconds. And then if I want to change the number of columns, I can just start doing that, right? But it'll keep all of the auto grid controls. And now this is an automatically responsive grid where I don't even have to worry about breakpoints. A lot of advantages to this. It's not for every single situation, but there are a lot of advantages. But look at all this stuff that I don't have to do. It just appeared out of thin air, right? Much, much, much more powerful. And by the way, those things are being assigned to a custom class with recipes. They're not utility class. I'm not littering utility classes all over my website. Very, very, very important is the recipes functionality. Okay, so what do we want to do next? Next gen instant Sass processing. Okay, let's delete this. Let's go in. Let's add a link. Okay, so we're gonna add a text link, and of course, why put it in the container I had selected when you can just drop it below everything else on the page? That makes sense. All right, let's go in and link it, custom URL, bang, it's actually a link. Okay, we'll go to the front end, we'll verify that this thing is actually a link, we'll inspect it. It has no classes on it. It's just an A, other than the bricks, standard class, whatever. Okay. We can do this on the front end. We can do this in the builder. We can do this wherever we want. I like to do it on the front end because it's easier for people to see what's going on because all the bricks stuff isn't also happening at the exact same time. But I'm gonna go to the global Sass area, okay? Now, very important, actually, let me go in here and let's give it a class. I just wanna be able to select it. And we're gonna call it like third-party link. We're gonna pretend that this link was added by a third-party tool. It could be a form tool. It could be a faceting tool like WP Grid Builder Facets, for example, okay? It's essentially something that we don't really have a lot of styling control over. We want it to look like a button. That's what we want it to, it's a link. We want it to look like a button. And this could be a facet that we want to look like our buttons and all that kind of stuff, right? Okay, so I'll close that, I'll refresh here. All right, so same situation, but the difference now is it should have that class on it. And it does, third-party link, okay? So I'm gonna go to Global Sass and I'm gonna type third-party link. Now, how do we make things look like buttons in ACSS? And I'm doing this globally, okay? Because I want this to happen across the entire website. You could assign all of the styles independently. You could like write out every single style. And I'll just give you a little tip. There's dozens of them. So like buttons are a framework in a framework. If they're done properly, you have to framework buttons. So it ends up becoming like a mini framework. You don't want to hassle with that. You don't want to have to hassle with that. You can use what are called mix-ins, right? So you do something like @include, and then you do button. And I want you to notice something that I am using, this is Sass. This is not CSS. This typically has to be pre-processed. If you write Sass anywhere, you have to save it, it'll pre-process it, and it'll turn it into vanilla CSS, and then you can reload the page and see what the hell has happened, okay? But we now have instant Sass processing. And I don't know of anywhere else where this actually exists. But notice I have not saved, and the yellow dot indicator says, hey, you have not saved this, but yet I can see exactly what is happening. And with one line, I have applied the entire button framework to that third-party link that I previously had no control over, right? This is the power of mix-ins, but this is also the power of instant Sass processing. In the previous versions of ACSS, you would have had to have saved, and then it would hot reload the page, and then you could finally see what you're doing. But it also came with other downsides. Other downsides being that if I wanted to do something else, like I wanted to write vanilla CSS below it, I wanted to do something like background red on the body. I don't know why you would ever want to do that. You're like a psychopath, but maybe you did want to do that. You wouldn't be able to see what you were doing. You know why? Because once you write Sass anywhere in vanilla, like anywhere in an editor, once Sass exists, nothing else can really work until the whole thing is pre-processed again. So now you're in a situation where you would have to save over and over and over and over and over every time you make a change. Save to see it, save to see it, save to see it. This is no longer the case in ACSS because this instant Sass processing also handles vanilla CSS without any issues whatsoever. Everything is being essentially processed instantly at all times, okay? So anytime I do something, it's reprocessing it instantly with essentially no delay, as you're seeing here. And you can see all of your work, everything that you're doing. And now this becomes a way, way, way more powerful and efficient area of automatic CSS. So you are free to do all of your functions, all of your mix-ins, all of your vanilla, anything that applies to the site globally should be done here. And this is, man, this is like, there's so much here. Like when you start using the border framework, when you start using icon framework, when you start using card frame, there's so much stuff you can do right here. It is so powerful. Also, you have access to internal CSS variables like content width here, like the Sass version of these variables, which opens up even more superpowers. We're not going to get too deep into all of that. I'll do many more trainings and documentation as we march towards Etch, because here's the thing, here's the kicker. This is how Etch is going to work, but Etch is going to work like this everywhere at the element level. So the element level will have Sass capability that is able to hook into ACSS, and it will have the instant processing. So it will have all of these benefits will be in Etch, not just isolated to this box right here, okay? Now, here's the other thing. This is why we're engineering this stuff on the back end, right? All of this is very important, not just to ACSS, but to a larger picture of just an insane development workflow that has just never existed before, literally in the history of the world. It has never existed before. So this is really good stuff. Now take this instant processing concept and wrap your head around this, okay? I'm gonna hit the save button, okay? And I want you to see something, which you've already seen many, many times before. It is this generated, I didn't hover over it, so it went away. Generated X style sheets in 3.33 seconds. We were really happy about 2 seconds, 3 seconds. There's a lot going on. There's a lot of complexity. Compile the entire thing 2 to 3 seconds and move on with your life. That's fantastic. However, when we started engineering the instant Sass processing, we essentially said, Chris came back and he's like, I think we can just instantly compile the entire framework the same exact way. And, we started looking at like, oh, okay, how long would that take, And if you have a good computer, it turns out, and I think this would be for most users in our tests, we've looked at it a couple different ways. Now, these are preliminary tests, preliminary results. So I'm not making any promises, but in preliminary tests, it will compile the entire the entire framework, not just that custom Sass area, the entire framework in half a second. So when we switch over to this new compiling functionality for the entire framework, which we're in the process of doing right now, when you click save, that could be a half second or less save action now, where previously it was 3 seconds. And if you're on a shitty server, it's like, could be 6-7 seconds, right? Think about that being half a second and you're moving on with it. Like that's a tremendous increase in speed and efficiency. So that's coming. All right, that is coming. All right, so that is next gen instant Sass processing, which is very fun, very fun. I use this all the time. All of your global Sass, global CSS should be put in this area right here. Plus, you now have control over this, right? So you can have kind of the exact experience that you want. I can dock it, I can pin it. It stays with its width, right? Now I'm seeing my entire website next to this. I mean, this is a CSS authoring experience you would expect to see. By the way, I also have there are superpowers in here. While we're here, why don't we just go over this, right? I could say something like third party, look at my fat fingers, third party buttons, okay? And it compiles a navigation for you. If I came down here and I said like my textures and patterns or something, okay? And I put CSS there. I am now, here's textures and patterns. And if I just click on this, it's gonna take me right to that area of the Sass. That's like one of these superpowers here, okay? What's another superpower? We have, if I Command D this, if there was like multiple instances of this, right? And I was gonna change all these buttons to something else. If I hit Command D, it will multi-select. I have now multi-cursor editing. I can write primary in both of those. I can say primary.button outline, and now they're all going to become the outline variants of primary, right? So you have multi-cursor editing, you have find and replace, you have all of these features. I hit Command F, I can find, replace, I can do a lot of this stuff that you would be doing in VS Code, for example. This is a real CSS authoring experience, not this nonsense that's going on in the Brick CSS. That's a glorified text area input, right? You want real CSS authoring when you're doing this kind of work. All right, so there's some additional superpowers. Okay, let's move on to the card framework. Card framework, very, very important. First of all, we're gonna turn this on by default. I've already decided this will be turned on by default. However, it may not be what you think. Because a lot of you are like, oh, hey, oh. When I turn on things by default, you're like, hey, whoa, wait a minute, wait, what, time out. But let me explain, okay? Here's why. First of all, everybody should be using it, but that's not the reason we're turning it on, because we feel like everybody should be using it. That doesn't necessarily mean we're gonna force it on you. We're forcing it on you in a very light way, and here's why, okay? Because there's two ways the card framework can behave, and you have control over it, okay? And we're gonna turn on the base level of it, not the aggressive version of it. I'll show you what I mean in just a second, okay? So I am going to create a div, and we're gonna create the simplest card that's ever been created, right? I will put an icon in it as well, but we'll put a heading and we'll put text, okay? So here is a card. Now I'm gonna open ACSS, and I'm gonna put this, I'm gonna undock it. I'm gonna put it over here because I know my head easily gets in the way of some of this stuff, and if it's off to the left, it's way safer. So I'm gonna put it over here. And I'm gonna go to cards right here. And I am going to turn on the card framework. I am gonna go to options. You're gonna see this option right here that says automatically style cards. This is the very aggressive version of the card framework. And this, I would say, is for card framework pros. If you're a pro, enable this, okay? You can enable this because you know how to manipulate it to do anything that you need it to do. But if you're a beginner of the card framework, you may want to leave this off, okay? And then go slow and take your time with the card framework to really understand what's happening and what's going on, okay? But this gives you one component-like functionality, even when you don't have component functionality, because it separates global card styles from independent card styles, okay? Which is much like what a component does in a lot of ways. It standardizes everything. When third-party systems like Frames, for example, or Bricks Maven, sorry, I'm still reliving my Oxygen days in a lot of ways. Bricks Maven, if they follow the card framework, the standardization that you get and the level of control that you get globally and at the instance level is unprecedented. Everybody should be using the card framework. But again, if you don't have automatically style cards on, it doesn't do anything. Nothing will happen, except you will have a library of card-based variables available to you, which are controllable by these dashboard inputs right here, okay? So things like card spacing, card typography, card border styles, card icons, card avatars, card media, these all become controllable by the card framework. But notice, okay, if I had auto styling on, if I said simple card, it would style it, boom. All of the card framework styles would instantly be applied. This icon would be styled according to my card icon styles. It would get the card padding, the card gaps, the card borders, the card shadows, the card everything. It would get everything instantly if I had auto styling turned on. But notice that when auto styling is not turned on, nothing happens. Nothing is affected, nothing will change, nothing will break, okay? So now you come in, and if you're building your card essentially from scratch, you would just start using the card variables to do that work, just like you use other variables. These are contextualized to cards though, and we've all talked about in the past why, like the immense value of the contextualization of variables, okay? And the abstraction of variables. The same way we've abstracted things like Spacing, okay? So content gap, grid gap. These are abstractions, right? These are contextualizations of variables so that we know where they were used. The problem with generic variables like space L, space M, space S, you have no idea where they've been used. Colors, primary, secondary, I don't know where those things have been used. And thus, here's the problem you run into. You use these generic variables everywhere. At some point, you reach a point where they become uneditable. They become unchangeable. Why? Because they're unpredictable. You don't know what you're actually affecting when you change their values because you don't have any context as to where they've been used. When you contextualize variables, like in a card context, or background context, or text context, or spacing context, and you give them contextual names, now I can safely change them at all times because I know exactly what those changes are going to affect, okay? So there's tremendous value in abstraction and contextualization. It adds a little complexity, but that complexity has tremendous value. This is why it's important to keep up, okay? Like to come to these live streams, so kudos to you for coming to these live streams. Like the people who don't keep up with this kind of stuff, they're actually creating more problems for themselves in the future. Like if you're just using space variables like space M, space L, everywhere and anywhere, you're gonna realize, oh man, at some point I can't safely change those values. I don't know what the hell is gonna happen, right? Follow the contextualization principles. This is why we're always trying to make CSS better. We're always trying to make our lives easier. We're always trying to give ourselves more control. Well, that comes with evolution in how we approach this kind of stuff. And it's, very valuable to keep up with the evolution. So if I'm gonna style this card, I can go in, there's a few ways to do this. Of course, I can write my CSS, that's what I would do. But if you don't wanna do that, you can come into like padding, for example, right click. I'm gonna close the dashboard because we don't need it for a second. I'm gonna right click this and you're gonna see something called card padding now. That's the abstracted card variable for card padding. You're gonna see something like card gap. So if I go to, and I hate how, look, notice I don't have the gap here. Okay, I gotta turn on turn on flex, then I gotta go flex column. Okay, now it's gonna auto apply the content gap because I have auto gap turned on, but I want card gap. So I'm gonna go to row gap, right click, and I'm gonna see, there's something called card gap. I should use that instead of the regular like content gap because this is a different context. So I'm gonna say, all right, let's use my card gap. It's as simple as that, right? If I wanted to do a background color, I could do card background. And here's how you know, okay, let's open the dashboard again. Cheat sheet, you guys see this down here? Cheat sheet, go to variables, type in the word card, and it's gonna show you all of them, right? You get dark card background hover. This is it's a mini framework. It's a framework inside of a framework. All of the variables that you might need to use or change are listed right here. And in our context menus 2.0, we're going to, what I would like to see is a card accordion. Okay, so when you right click something like this, there's a card area and it gives you all of your card things that you might want to apply. And maybe we space them out or separate them out into like card spacing, card typography, card colors, yada, yada, yada. You get the gist. But we want the context menus to make this easier. One thing that does make it easier is your ability to guess. Okay, because we avoid abbreviation and we try our best to use the exact property names for what you want to do. So for example, if you were like, I want card padding, I don't know what the variable is called. Well, guess. What would your best guess be for card padding? Would it be card padding? Okay, then you probably guessed it, right? A lot of these things you can guess out of the box. Now, if it's not guessable, you could just go to the cheat sheet and look it up real quick, reference it, great, move on with your life, right? But this allows you, the card framework on, you can build with the card framework without it touching anything on its own. It's not gonna auto do anything unless you turn on auto styling. So that's what I mean when I say we're gonna have card framework on by default. It's essentially gonna have that library of card variables available to you at all times. And then, nothing bad happens. But if you want to auto style your card, you can flip that switch and you can start auto styling your cards. All right, good. That is the card. I just want to, I'm not going to go into the entire card framework. Okay. That could be an entire video in itself. What I wanted to mention was we're going to turn this on by default. Everybody should start using it. It will not do anything for you that you do not instruct it to do unless you turn on auto styling. So don't be afraid of it. Don't feel like it's gonna break things. It's gonna mess things up. It's not. Okay, just turn it on. Start using it slowly but surely. And you can mix and match. Like you could use half the card framework variables and then just use whatever variables you want for other things. And those things will be controllable from the dashboard. The things that you don't use the card variables for obviously won't be. But you know, it's better than nothing. It's better than nothing. So take your time. You don't have to be perfect. You don't have to use it to perfection. Okay, just get started with it. Get started with it. Get comfortable with it. Start experimenting with it. Okay. All right, we did card framework. Next, another thing that saves tremendous headaches, tremendous amount of time. Everybody should be using it, and it's very safe, again, to deploy. And I've actually just made it even safer than it was and even more robust than it was the last time you saw it. And that is the icon framework, okay? The icon framework has now, and guys, here's the thing about the development of ACSS. And you guys can see this in the inner circle. I'm doing a full site build right now for Agency Alpha for our new fully designed frames template for agencies. And I'm building it from scratch, and I'm not using frames. I'm building it literally from scratch in the inner circle so everybody can see every single step of the process. And I ran into this block with trying to use the icon framework for something, because on that build, it doesn't have standard icons. It has, like, some are boxed, some are not boxed. Some are big, some are small. Some are this, some are that. And I realized in building that, here's the thing about ACSS, we don't sit around, and I don't sit around brainstorming features. What would be a really cool thing that we can put into, I don't do that. I don't do that. Unlike many developers, what I do is I build real sites. I build sites, and when I run into problems and challenges, I go, I can fix it. I can framework that. I can framework a fix for that. And it's a very important thing because it's a real problem that real people are facing, and we solve it. We don't sit around brainstorming, well, what might be cool? Right? That's not what we do, okay? We solve real problems with real robust solutions. The icon framework is one of them. I mean, I can say, raise your hand if you are like, dude, I hate touching icons. I can't ever figure them out. I don't know if it's a fill, a stroke, a this, or that. I don't know what's controlling it. I can't get it to be the right size. I can't get it to be boxed. If I use different icons from different sets, they all look different. I hate them. I hate them. And I think like 60% minimum people would raise their hand and be like, yeah, I hate icons too, okay? The icon framework just solves your icon problems. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna add an icon here. And I'm just gonna highlight how it's become more robust, okay, over the last few weeks. So we're gonna use a custom SVG. Let's throw in this YouTube icon right here, okay? So we got a nice little YouTube icon. We wanna go about styling this. I'm gonna bring up the icon framework here. We're gonna go to icons, just like we have cards. We're gonna turn on I think everybody should turn this on. Everybody should start using it. We're gonna have it on by default because, again, it does not touch any icon on your website unless you want it to, okay? It will not auto touch your icons. You are safe, all right, from Uncle Icon Framework. You will not be inappropriately touched, okay? All right, let's go in and let's show you how to apply it. So I'm gonna go to Style. I'm gonna go down to Data Attributes. This is done with Data Attributes, which is an interesting thing because it's not like other things in ACSS, it's done a little bit differently, but this actually gives you tremendous extra control over what's happening. I'll explain in a minute. But I'm just gonna say that this is a data icon. Look immediately what has happened, okay? Immediately it's boxed, it changed color, it got a different size going on, it's got all this stuff, okay? I'm gonna save it, and we're just gonna take a trip to the front end. We can see this is a boxed icon. Now I'm gonna go to ACSS, and I'm gonna go to Icons, and I'm gonna look at Global Icon Styles. So you can set a default icon theme. Do you want light icons, or do you want dark icons? Now, when I was first developing the framework, you can now see it's a light icon, right? This is actually, let me see, I think this install uses the old defaults. It does. So let me reset to the new defaults because I finally standardized the logic for how to think about this. And this also comes from, you'll see why it has to be this way. A lot of people might think this is an opinion. I think I'm gonna demonstrate why it has to be this way, okay? All right, so when you are analyzing what theme this is this a dark icon or a light icon? Because the background is light. I think we can objectively agree on that. The icon itself is dark. If I change it to light, okay, and I save, we're gonna look at the refresh here. Okay, what did it do? Hold on, let's go to light icon style, primary light. Let me refresh. Right, there we go. Okay, now you can see it's the opposite. The hot reload didn't actually refresh the style sheet. I don't know if there's caching on these zip WPs or what's going on, but sometimes you have to actually refresh the page. Okay, so now the background is dark. The icon is light. Is that a light icon or is that a dark icon? Like when I asked this the first time, I polled people, it was like 50-50. Nobody could agree on whether that was a dark icon or a light icon. But I will show you, I think there is an objective reality here. I'm gonna go back and I'm gonna choose dark. We'll save. Let's see if the hot reload catches it this time. Okay, the hot reload got it that time. All right, so this, I think objectively is a dark icon. And here's why. I'm gonna go down, and if I take off the boxed icon style by default, so there's a switch you can flip. And what you do is you look at your design. You just look at a design of a site, and you look at the icons, and go, are most of these boxed, or are most of these not boxed? If most of them are boxed, then make them boxed by default. And then you can make the ones unboxed, we call it naked. You can make them naked if they need to be naked, but it's more efficient, obviously, if it makes most of them boxed, if most of them are supposed to be boxed, right? But watch what happens. If I have this as a dark icon, and I say, stop boxing it, okay, I don't want them to be boxed anymore, so it's not gonna be a box style, it's still a dark icon, yeah? Can we agree on that? It's still, what happens if that icon was light? If I had referred to that as a light icon simply because its background was light, when I unboxed it, it would be light on white and I wouldn't be able to see it. It would fail color contrast check. So to me, objectively, this is a dark icon theme. This is a dark icon style, okay? So you look at the color of the icon, not of the boxed styling that is around it, okay? And this way, and watch what I can do. This was not possible before. This is a boxed icon, and this is what I could not do before that I now can do. Watch, I'm gonna go to this attribute, and I'm gonna add another one. And it's gonna be data icon style naked. And immediately that one individual icon goes from being boxed, all of my others can stay boxed, but this one icon, I can override its style. By the way, I can also override its theme. Data icon theme is light and it will go to light. And I have with these data attributes full control, okay? And don't be scared of this. We go to the documentation and we're gonna go icon framework. This is fully documented in detail, okay? I also wanna show you how this works. It can work on groups of icons as well, okay? Oh, because the other thing I can do is I can add one more and I can say data icon size. And I can go S and now it's S. I can go L and now it's L, right? I can control its size here. These are all set in the dashboard. Okay, you have control over all of this stuff. But I go down, look at this, configuring it, icon sizes, icon lists, overriding the icon theme, overriding the icon style, overriding the icon size. You can do it with classes also. For those of you who are scared of data attributes, and you're like, oh my God, Kevin, I don't know. I don't know about these data attributes. I'm not sure about that, right? You can use classes as well. So I also want to duplicate this a few times, okay? And we can see something like icon S on the parent affects all of the icons. So will the data attribute. You can do it either way, okay? You can do icon dark. You could do icon, well, these are already dark. You could do icon light on the parent. It'll affect all of the children, okay? So this is, you have control over groups of icons using the same utilities, individual icons. This is going to change your life, my friends. You will never have icon-based nightmares ever again, ever again. I know some of you, if you're like me, I've gone to sleep before and it's 3 a.m. in the morning and my mind is trying to style a fucking icon. Like, why? Why is this happening to me? Because they're a nightmare. They're a nightmare and they will bleed into your actual nightmares, but not anymore. But not anymore. It is fixed, okay? So there's the icon framework. Last but not least, and then we're gonna dive into Q&A. How are we doing on time? We're at the 1 hour mark. Okay, we need to speed up. We need to speed up here. We're gonna do some inverted radii work, okay? Because you will be afraid of this. You will be very afraid of this until you see it in action and see it working. And you may still be very afraid of it after that. However, this is the difference between you being able to use inverted radius and you throwing in the towel and you see a design that has inverted radius and you're like, I don't know, I quit, I give up. I'm not a web designer anymore. I'm out, right? Because inverted radius are an absolute pain in the ass. And I have watched people, I've seen people, they will spend hours trying to get the inverted radius working on a single element. Hours. And it's just a major waste of time and money. And anytime designers are afraid to submit inverted radius designs because they don't know what's going to happen to them. The developer could just go off the rails. And I don't know. There could be stabbing, shootings. There could be, it's drama. Okay. Nobody wants to deal with inverted radius. I mean, designers love them because they don't have to code them. So, it's a big problem, right? Let's just find some feature cards. Let's use feature section Charlie. Let's just add some feature cards in. Okay, so I'm gonna come in here. The first thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna clear out the gap that's in this card. We'll come in here. We'll see how we can maybe use some of the card framework stuff. You know, like I can use, I can go padding as card padding here, okay, as an example. And then what I wanna do, I wanna set, and I'm gonna do this a little bit differently because I'm using inverted radius for this. I wanna go to feature card Charlie, and I wanna go to, I wanna set this variable called BG. And I want it to be like primary dark, maybe even primary ultra dark, okay? And then I wanna go use that variable. So I'm gonna use that on the body. I'm gonna go background, and I'm just gonna say BG. And that's gonna get that color that I just set, right? It's just like it's a very generic variable, but we're gonna need it. You're gonna see why we're gonna need it in a minute, okay? I'm just gonna do color white on the text, and then I'm gonna go to the heading, and I will go color white on this as well. We're not actually trying to style this up, you know, perfectly. We're just demonstrating getting to a point where we can demonstrate the inverted radius. I wanna change the aspect ratio of those images. Okay. The next thing I want to do is I want to make sure the border radius is clear on the image and on the figure tag. Because in bricks, actually this should be image border radius 0. Because in bricks, you can't just throw the style on the class. It will not reach the actual image. It will only style the figure tag if those are figure tags. So it's another little problem. Okay. By the way, in Etch, you know, if like a principle in Etch that we're following is if the builder ever renders a box, it will show you the box in the structure panel and give you access to the box. Like the figure tag is a box wrapped around the image, but Bricks doesn't give you access to it and it doesn't show you that it's there. And you can't style it without, you know, writing custom CSS. So we will not violate that principle. Let's go get rid of those other 3 instances as we don't need them. Okay, so what I wanna do is I just wanna put a box right here, and I want an inverted radius, a cute little like, you know, comes down and then here and then this sort of thing, you know? And I want it to be the same color as this box down here. Where did that come from? It came back all on its own. All right, so I'm gonna go into the media wrapper and I'm gonna just drop a div, okay? And I am going to take that media wrapper and I'm gonna position it relative because it's gonna trap, I want it to trap this little div right here, which I'm gonna call inverted radius. Now, you can put inverted radius on the existing boxes, on the existing figure tags, it depends on what you're trying to accomplish, okay? And in this case, I'm trying to accomplish something very specific that I am going to choose to use a div to do, all right? So this is feature card Charlie, and I'm gonna say inverted radius. That's this box right here. All right, I am going to root. I'm gonna position this absolute. I'm gonna go top is, actually I can do left. Let's do left of 0, bottom of 0, background background of BG, okay, width of 50% and height of 100 pixels, okay. We do 200. Why is the width not changing? Bottom, absolute, left, background, BG, width, height, 200. Let's display it as flex. Inverted radius. What is with the width? What are you doing? Do you guys see that? Did you see that? What? Width? Is my dyslexia on, or is it effing with me? Okay. Why is the height changing when I change the width? That's hilarious. Okay, how about inverted radius? It is in the media wrapper. Why does it look like it's in the body though? No, that's correct. Where did I put the background? BG, no, okay, that's good. This is why I don't like separating my CSS everywhere. Body has the background. Just the body has the background, okay. This all appears to be correct. I will keep an eye on the chat. If you've spotted something that I have not spotted, let's go background red. Let's show us the red box, please. Width, 100. Okay. Is it just bricks not rendering the change? Now I don't even see the div. Okay. Let's give it a height. 100 pixels. Now let's see if we see it on, okay, there, okay. So the front end is showing me something different than the builder is showing me. Let's refresh. Okay. Bricks sometimes pisses down its own leg. And you have to just be aware of that, hey, maybe it's really happening. Maybe what I think is happening, just not here. I just can't see it here. Okay, that's better. All right, now let's position it absolute. Let's go left, 0, bottom, 0. There we go. Okay. Background, I already did that up here, just changes to BG. So now it's the same color as this. You see how we're gonna blend them together, right? The height might be a little aggressive now. Let's go, oh, you know why? Because brick sets a minimum. Minimum height, there we go. Minimum width, 0. Great, thank you. All right, now I was like, that looking like a little more than 20 pixels or 50 pixels. Okay, let's do something in the neighborhood of that. Now the inverted radius uses our radius variable. So there's a global radius variable and it's gonna use that variable by default. What I wanna do, because I want this to be a really wavy, curvy card, right? So I'm gonna bring feature card Charlie here. Just like I said, a BG here, I'm gonna redefine the value of radius. We're gonna do something like 1.5 M. And now if I did something like border radius on the card and I did radius, it would be 1.5 M. You could see it down there. I'm gonna overflow of clip. And there's that 1.5 M radius you're seeing here. And now when I use the inverted radius, it will also use that new value, right? So all the radii will be the same. I did commit to never using the word radii, but I just find myself having to use it. And it's quite painful every single time. Okay, we're ready to talk about the inverted radius. Let's go 150 on this. Could be, actually, yeah. You could actually do max content as well if we actually put content in it, which we will do in a minute. We'll put an icon in it, okay? So hang tight, stay tuned. All right, we're gonna do our inverted radius. Now, I'm gonna go back to the documentation because you will be terrified. This is a terrifying thing for people who have never done it before. And we're gonna go back to docs here and we're gonna say inverted radius. All right, we're gonna click on this, and I just wanna show you, okay? This is fully documented. It will hold your hand, it will walk you through this. Here's another example that we've done, right? So you come down, identifying inverted radius is number 1. Do you even know the difference between a radius and an inverted radius? You should also know that there is no way in CSS to do an inverted radius. This is completely an engineered thing, okay? And it's one of various ways to do it, but it is the way to do it with the most flexibility. It has some limitations, but it also has the most flexibility. Okay, activating inverted radius, then we have the inverted radius utilities. These are the ones you need to memorize. It's 4 properties. They are data attributes, and then there are different values. But the values, again, are just logical values, okay? So once you've done it a few times, It's locked into your brain. You know how to do it. Now I'm going to come down here, and it talks about preparing to apply the inverted radius, which we've already done. We've used the BG, okay? We've also changed the radius value to whatever we want it to be. And now we get into adding the inverted radius, and I start demonstrating exactly how you need to visualize what we're doing. We're essentially taking blank boxes that you cannot see. You cannot see them, which makes it difficult. But if you know how to visualize what you're doing, then you'll be able to do it. You'll be able to accomplish your mission, right? And you might think, Kevin, this is a little complex. This is a little, yeah, this is inverted radius simplified by 1,000, okay? So if you think this is complicated, try doing it without this, and then come back and let me know how complicated you think this is. This is very, very simple once you've gotten it down, okay? You just need to know how to visualize. Here's all of the positions. Now, that seems like a lot. It's not. It's one syntax, and then there's all logical values. But once you understand the syntax of what you're doing, you can guess all of these values. You know what all of these values are without memorize. There's nothing to memorize. It is the syntax. You learn the syntax of what we're doing to position our boxes. And then we talk about how to slice the boxes, right? I also show you what does it look like when it's in the wrong place, right? Why is it, I'm adding it, but I don't see it, right? Well, your box is probably in the wrong place, okay? There's only 4 options, really. Okay, and then we talk about slicing the corner. There's 4 values for slicing. Makes it kind of easy. Again, they're all logical, okay? Anyway, it's all here. This is a level of documentation that doesn't exist anywhere else also. So just keep that in mind. Run to the documentation whenever you have questions. Okay, so I'm gonna come here. Yay, he had to start using the actual plural for radius. Okay, yeah, simmer down. Okay, we're gonna go to data attributes. We're gonna say data inverted radius 1. So how do I remember this? Let's train your brain on syntax. First of all, in order for a data attribute to be valid, according to the W3C, it has to have the word data in front of it, okay? So data has to come first with any data attribute. That's why data icon is data icon. That's why inverted radius is data inverted radius. So automatically, if you're like, where do I start? Well, you can start by writing the word data. It's gonna have that in it, so do that. Now, what do you want? What are you doing right now? I'm creating an inverted radius. Okay, inverted radius. Which one? There's 2 of them. You have 2 options. Why? We're using pseudo elements, and you only get 2 pseudo elements, so there's gonna be a 1 and a 2. So you write the number 1. All right, so data inverted radius 1. What are we doing here to this radius number 1? We're positioning it. Okay, so data inverted radius 1 position. Now, because I have a BG, which I don't always have, I will see a little bit of a box here, okay? Now, I wanna position this, right? So we're gonna position it, and remember our main box that it's attached to, right here, this little div that we added? We are gonna position it on the top, but the top has a question. Top inside, like top inside the box on the top or outside the box on the top? We need it to be the top outside. And then is it left or right? Is it left or right, right? So top outside, left. Now, we're gonna come down the inverted radius. Oh, good. I'm glad that this is saving you time, Brendan. I'm glad actually that somebody's using it. Raise your hand. Let's just do this. I'm just really curious. Have you used the inverted radius framework yet? Have you used the inverted radius? I wanna see in the chat. Say no or yes. I want to see, like, what is our ratio of no's to yeses, right? Let's just do that. I'm really curious to see. Slice, okay. And by the way, if I can do this as a dyslexic person, I promise you can do this, okay? So I'm gonna explain what I just did here, but I'm waiting for the chat. I know there's a delay. The delay is annoying. So we got our first 2 no's. Obviously, Brendan is a yes. David said not yet. Rob says yeah a few times. That's good. Good to know. No, not yet. No, never, ever, not yet. Okay. Well, look how easy. Let's just go to the front end and have a look-see at what we've got so far. Look how easy this is coming along. Okay. I've got my first inverted radius here. Now we're gonna travel to this corner right here. This This goes back to identifying radius. This is not going to be an inverted radius. This does not need to be an invert. It just needs to be a normal radius, okay? So what I'm gonna do is on my div that I'm already working on, I'm gonna say border top right radius. This is just normal CSS is equal to radius. And now I've got that curve, okay? You guys see what we're working with here? It's fantastic, right? Now all we need is an inverted radius down here. Now, if I had to draw a box to create this, would I draw the box on the inside or would I draw the box on the outside if I want to slice that corner right there, right? You guys see where my box needs to be positioned on the outside bottom, okay? Bottom right outside, bottom right outside. Okay, so we're gonna go back in here and we're gonna say, inverted data, inverted radius 2. I already did number 1. Now I'm gonna do 2, position, and I'm gonna say bottom. Now you can have bottom outside right, or you can have bottom right outside, or you can have bottom outside right outside. What the hell is the difference? What is going on here, right? You put outside after the word where it makes sense for that to be outside. Now let me explain it to you. Do I want it to go to the bottom outside? No, I want it to be inside this box on the bottom, but I want it to go outside to the right, okay? So it's bottom right outside, okay? So it's going to the bottom, then it's going to the right outside. So it's staying inside according to the, what would that be? The y-axis. It's staying inside on the y-axis. It's going outside to the right. It's outside on the x-axis, okay? Then I'm gonna slice it. Okay, so data inverted radius to slice. Where did we decide we needed to slice that box? On the bottom left, there's my inverted radius. Bang, just like that. Now you can see the effect is having a little overflow. It's not really an overflow issue. This is more of a z-index issue. So I can easily fix this by just taking my body, right, which has my content in it, and I can elevate it. Z-index 1, okay? And now we are perfect. We're gonna save. Look at this cute little box, okay? Now, what I'm gonna do is, because it's a box, guess what? I can actually stick things inside of it, right? That's fun. We like doing that around here, okay? Give you the give you the wink and the nod. Okay, let's go feature card Charlie. Okay, I'm not gonna bother with the FR. We're gonna delete this anyway, it doesn't matter. I'm gonna go icon, right? Check this out, check this out. So I'm gonna go, let's add our, let's say these are video cards. We're gonna signify that these are video cards by putting a cute little video icon in here. Let's combine what we're doing with the icon framework. Why don't we, right? Wouldn't that make our life very easy? I'm gonna go data, icon, and immediately it's gonna get that style. But you know what? I don't want the boxed version of this. I want data icon style to be naked. There's my naked icon. Oh dear, it looks like it's, is that dark? Is that light? Data icon theme. We can go light because I want it to be a light icon. That's gonna have my light icon style. Now I could go to my inverted radius box that I had, and I could say, you know, I want to display this as a grid, and I just want to place the items in the center, right? And it's going to place the items in the center. And now what I would like to do maybe is, can I do min content on this? No, probably because the icon doesn't have any text in it. Let's go icon. How about icon size? Can I multiply this by 2? I can. My gosh. Let's just bang. Look at that. Okay, whatever you want to do. Whatever you want to do. This is just one example, right? I would say the radius is a little aggressive for this tiny amount of space, but that's up to you. That's a you thing, okay? But look what I was able to do with inverted radius framework, something very, very complex and complicated, with just some simple data attributes. I understand the logic of, okay, how to position my box and how to slice my box, and I've got inverted radius, problem solved. I threw an icon in there and I was able to get the icon styling that I wanted. Bang, 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 just whip that up. Okay, didn't have to mess with the SVG or is it a font? Is it an SVG? Is it an I? Is it what kind of element is it? Is it color? Is it fill? Is it stroke? Don't care, don't care. Just slapping data attributes on stuff and I'm moving on with my life, right? Okay, I didn't put a dash in min content. I did, pretty sure I did. It just wasn't wide enough. And then you can't calc, yeah, because I think it's because it's an SVG in there. Like the box has no width because it has no actual content. And I don't think it's recognizing the SVG as actual content. So that's why I just went to a different value. If I took the icon size, now there's a value in there, and then I can just multiply it by something, right? So now the size of that box is relative to the size of the icon, which is kind of nice. I think you can do something like that. So yeah, like this is very, very challenging stuff that you just read a little documentation, slap on some data attributes, and problem solved. And you don't have these kind of nightmares in your life anymore. Okay, I wish the data attribute text boxes could be text area boxes. Gets annoying typing in there and editing stuff. Yes, yeah, in Etch, you can write, it's not two inputs. You can assign data attributes in Etch. So I could say like data icon, data inverted radius 1 position, and I can just slap a value on, I would say equals, and then go top, outside, right, and then hit enter, and it applies the data attribute to the element. So yeah, you should be able to write that as one string, would be amazing. And that's how it works in Etch. So just for everybody who's wondering. You can also style data attributes in Etch. It's not a class system, it's a full-blown selector system. So many advantages, so many advantages. Okay, we'll just keep plugging every opportunity that we have. Plug, 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 plug. Then you just duplicate these bad boys. I mean, look at this. This is so, let's just throw in a real image, just so you can appreciate how these cards that I just pulled these out of nowhere. I mean, just appreciate how these would look, you know? Let's throw this in here. I mean, these are good looking cards, ladies and gentlemen. All right? Just whipped them up out of nowhere. This also shows you how I took a boring icon card Charlie. I'm a feature card Charlie. Can Brick stop cramping my style and actually put the images in that I requested? Okay, there we go. I mean, we took feature card Charlie, some boring feature card. Look what we've turned this into. A few data attributes, a little icon framework action, little inverted radius. Now we got something you don't see on every single website. You know what I'm saying? Like that's pretty nice. It's pretty good. Okay, we're gonna go to Q&A. Open Q&A now. That took a little longer than I wanted. I'll stick around for an extra 30 minutes for those who want to ask questions and get answers to things. I'm gonna go ahead, yeah. So Idaho Freelancer says you can put the price in the box if this is like an e-commerce card. Yeah, 100%. You can put whatever you want in there. Very, very nice. Okay, let's see. Okay, let me search for questions. I was just checking the chat out real quick. All right, more of a request than a question. Could you show the most optimized setup for ACSS for 2025? There isn't really an optimized setup. It's the defaults out of the box. And then what I would do differently is personally, what I would do is I would go to options, utility classes, and I would turn on pro mode, which is gonna turn off all of these. And you're gonna use variables for those things. Icon framework on, card framework on. I would go to workflow enhancements. I would turn almost everything on. For bricks, I don't like how I did the logic of this bricks grid visualizer. The logic is off is the enhancement rather than on is the enhancement. So you're gonna end up with pretty much all of these on except for this one. And what that does, it disables that stupid grid overlay thing that is never accurate and always gets in your way when you're dealing with grids. Workflow enhancements, everything on at all times there. Everything else is just gonna be how you want them to be. I don't think there's any other, I mean, I can probably do an updated video on how I personally set up ACSS. Once I'm using Etch, I'm gonna do a stack update. You know that I have a very popular video that goes over all the details of my stack and how to set everything up. I'm gonna redo that, but I'm waiting for when I'm using Etch so that Etch can be a part of that update video. But yeah, if you have any specific questions about any of these areas, how I set them up or what I recommend, now is the time to ask for sure. I know you said in the past that we don't need to update a prior ACSS built site to the latest version and features. Is this still the thinking considering how much ACS? Yeah, unless you're iterating on that site and you need a new feature as part of that iteration. I would never recommend rebuilding, redesigning, redoing styling on things to just update it to the late. No, nobody's paying you to do that. It's a complete waste of time. Sites you built are done, forgotten until you need to edit them. And if you're editing them and you're like, God, I'm cursing myself because this is so bad, right? Because it's so outdated, according to like what that does is it justifies why the latest standards exist, why the improvements we've made exist. Because when you go back and try to edit a site that doesn't have them, you realize, oh, this sucks. Yeah, it sucks. That's why we do it differently now than we used to do it, right? And this is all CSS. Like the concept of frameworking should always be evolving. You should always be getting better, more efficient, more control. Like that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to get more control, do things more efficiently, and have less nightmare scenarios, right? That's why we're evolving this stuff and changing it. But no, unless they're paying you to do that, don't go back and redo old work. Can you demonstrate how to do the corner cut like you did etch button for all buttons on the site? Yeah, if you need to do something to all buttons on your site, it is insanely easy. Maybe I'll do a little recipe for this, but for people who can't remember it. But you're gonna use an attribute selector, class star equals, and then button double dash. Because every button in ACSS starts with this prefix. And what you're essentially doing is selecting anything that has this prefix. And now you can do whatever you want. You can put a you could put a box shadow on all your buttons. If I did box shadow and then wrote a box shadow thing, that would apply to every single button on your website, right? So this allows you anything you're like, I need to do it to every single button, then this is what you do right here. Maybe I make a recipe, maybe it'll be like all buttons or something, and it would expand out into that little thing. Because not everybody is familiar with attribute selectors. I don't know. If you guys want something like that, let me know. How do you migrate your current cards when you initialize the card framework since Frames imported classes with card? Here's the thing, all the Frames, this is why we're gonna turn it on by default. All the Frames cards are gonna get rebuilt with the card framework. So you're gonna need the framework on or the cards are gonna break. That's only gonna give you more styling options and more control, right? But it's still not gonna auto style any cards you previously added, which is nice. So yeah, you would turn on the card framework and then hopefully those will be rebuilt. But in the meantime, you just replace values. So like I showed you with the gap, I don't use content gap. I don't use content gap divided by 2 or whatever you were doing before. Now you just simply use card gap, card padding, card border, card radius, card whatever. Everything is prefixed with the word card, and then it's pretty much just plain language of what you're trying to do. Can we get more examples of using content grid? It depends on what you're trying to do. You know, I really need like an example of what you're trying to do. Then I could show you exactly how to do it. Okay, we answered that question. Is it possible to add the isBG to a class instead of having to use it as a utility class? I don't remember if there's a recipe. Is there a recipe to go with it? Let's see. Well, I can just go in this box right here. Nope, there's no recipe yet. So I can look at creating a recipe. There may be a reason I didn't create it because I normally create a recipe to go along with any utility like that. There may be a reason I didn't do it. I'm gonna look into it, but I'll check on that. With isBG, is the parent set to position relative automatically? Yes, it is. Does the section grow in height depending on the image height? We already answered that. I guess it's advanced image puts filters, transitions, and its own menu. Yeah, that's probably an AT setting for sure. Can you show us what the auto grid aggressiveness does? Yeah, auto grid aggressiveness. Let's go to, I shouldn't duplicate it until I actually put an image in there. Let's go select. Let's look at this fine gentleman right here. Put him, I'm tired of looking at iPhones. Okay, duplicate, duplicate, duplicate. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Oh, here, I mean, here's another thing we can look at, right? I'll just do auto, grid auto. Let's use the context menu to show you where you can get these. So auto grid 3. Okay, grid auto 3. Let's see if I had to turn it on or if it's not applying it on its own. Auto grid aggressiveness 0.7. Let me make sure I didn't turn them off. Auto grid, grid, auto grid off. There they are. I turn them off on pro mode because you would use the recipe. So that's why the class is not working. All right, let's enable the class just so we can do it that way. That's the way a lot of people are going to be doing it. Okay, so now you see that it is, in fact, auto-gridding things, okay? So the auto-grid aggressiveness, let's go to the front end to take a look at this. All right, it's always a question of where does the break happen? When does it go from 3 to 2? How does it decide? So it decides on a very complex formula, but it turns out that there's one value in that formula that you could potentially tweak as a user to control when that break actually happens. And this applies to all of your auto grids across the board. So what you might find is, it's not quite aggressive enough. That when I'm looking at my auto grids, it's not breaking soon enough. Or you might have the opposite problem. When I'm looking at my auto grids, it's breaking too late, right? Okay, so you would open up ACSS, you would go to layout, you would go to auto grid, and there's this little control point right here that's set at 0.7. And if you do 0.5 or 0.9, you're gonna change the aggressiveness. And if we hover over this, which I can't do because I'm in mobile mode, so we're gonna hover over this, it says, how soon should items stack? 0 to 1 as a decimal value, higher values stack items sooner. So another thing you can do besides documentation is you can hover over the tooltip. It might give you a little bit of context as to what you're doing. So if I put it at a 0.9, it's gonna stack almost immediately. Like it's gonna start getting crushed barely, and just right away it's gonna be like, oh, okay, I'm stacking, because like you told me to be super aggressive. Or you can go like 0.4, 0.3, it's gonna squish before it decides to stack. So this gives you a control over that. Now, let me show you something about this, because if you don't use the class, okay, let's say I did my fancy auto grid, right? And I want to use the recipe. So I go auto grid. Guess what? You now have control over just this grid's aggressiveness with this little variable right here. So now when I go to 0.4 or 0.5 or 0.6 or whatever, that only affects this particular grid. You still have column control, how many exist, you know? Okay, so all this stuff is, yeah, it's all, and then you don't have to worry about writing all this mess in here. I mean, who wants to deal with that? Nobody wants to deal with that. I want to go, hey, ACSS, I want an auto grid. Thank you. Okay, I want 3 columns. I want it to be half as aggressive. Let's change that value. Save, move on with my life. Ain't nobody got time for all this, right? You feel me? Look at this. It's so very helpful. Okay. You mentioned computer speed. Is the framework compiled locally and uploaded, or did it mean by the server? The instant compiling is done by the browser, and that is gonna, your CPU is gonna come into play there. And you know, if you're a chump, it's gonna be a little bit slower. If you got the latest tech, you know, it's gonna be instant, right? But we don't have any control over that. You know, it is what it is. It's a factor that we unfortunately cannot change. Let's see. All global CSS should go in ACSS panel instead of Brick's child theme. Absolutely, yes, absolutely. Stop using Brick's child theme. Stop doing that. It's a terrible way to write CSS. Look at this. Let's go to this. This is poverty. This is a poverty CSS editor, okay? This is a glorified text area input. This is terrible. It's the worst place on earth to write CSS. Do not write it here. It's not Sass powered. It doesn't have access to internal variables. It doesn't have autocomplete, it doesn't have find and replace, it doesn't have multi-cursor, it doesn't have anything that you should want it to have. This is not a Bricks problem, by the way. This is WordPress's archaic infrastructure. And WordPress's belief that you don't need or deserve a proper CSS editor. That's all being fixed in Etch. Okay, can we use the built-in CSS? Okay. Can we then use the built-in CSS editor in ACSS instead of Codebox? Yes. Yeah, you don't need Codebox anymore for Sass. Can you have exemptions by using classes or IDs with the card framework? Yes. Yes. If you turn on auto styling, that's the other thing about this. Okay, go to targeting settings. So what I would do is if you don't want to automatically style every card, you leave this off, but then you come to targeting settings and you put the selector of your card, like feature card Charlie or whatever. And now feature card Charlie will get all of the auto styling. So yes, that is absolutely one way you can kind of like pseudo auto style your cards. It's like, this would be the safest way to auto style your cards. Okay. And then you can manipulate the variables for any values that need to be changed. So yes, that is like a pseudo auto styling approach. That's probably, if you're not fully blown committed to auto styling all of your cards, then I would use this targeting settings option. Yes. So you're not excluding cards. You're just choosing which ones get auto styled, which by default excludes every other card. Does card being on by default still require card to be in the class name or only for auto styling? Ah, man, Richard, such a great question. Such a great question. If you are manually using the card framework, you do not have to have the word card in the name. You could do everything that the card framework does without having to have card in the name. And actually, if you're going to manually style card selectors, it doesn't have to have the card in it either. You just put any, like, my, not a thing we can't speak of. Okay? Now that's going to get auto styled with the card framework. Okay? So even these manual selectors don't have to have the word card in them. That was a great question. I didn't even think to ask that or talk about it. Okay. How have you been able to display the elements horizontally in the elements panel? You mean vertically, right? You mean vertically? So let's go back to pages, leave, home, edit. Okay, this is vertical because normally they're in a grid in blocks side by side. So this is options, bricks enhancements, stack the add elements panel. Turn that on, you're good to go. I would also turn on pro mode for add elements. It removes all the chumpy bricks elements that you should not be using. It just gets those out of your vision so you're not tempted to use the chumpy elements. And then hide redundant bricks components. If you're using frames components, this will hide the bricks versions of them so you're not confused. When you type in, like when you go here and you're like, I want a modal or I don't know what how about accordion? Well, normally you would see like 4 of them listed here. It'd be like frames accordion, bricks accordion nested, blah, blah, blah. Okay, now you just see frames accordion. It gets rid of the redundant ones. So that's another good one. And then we already talked about bricks UI for buttons and the grid visualizer, improve CSS editing and CSS for styling. So we've pretty much covered all that. Will ACSS be a part of Etch or will I need a separate license? You will definitely need a separate license. It is an add-on, but Etch will have a framework builder in it, okay? So I wouldn't recommend it because I don't recommend lighting money on fire and wasting a bunch of your time and trying to pretend that you're also a framework author while on top of being a web designer. It's just the money, like, okay, think of all the things you've watched happen. Nobody's gonna build their own framework and have any of the shit that you watched in this stream alone, minus all the shit that we didn't cover. But think about the things in this stream alone. Creating all that yourself, like I'm not saying you don't have the talent to do it. You don't have the time to like the amount of like spend $149 and it just all exists. You could start out like, all right, I'm gonna do this myself. Fuck, what is your hourly rate? An hour in, you're upside down. You're like 2 hours in, you're losing money. What are you doing? What are you doing? But with that said, Etch will have a framework builder inside of it where you could literally build your entire framework inside of Etch yourself if you wanted to go that route. Again, it's not financially feasible to do that, in my opinion, but you could. So there will be that. Let's see. What's the advantage of using the white token versus plain white? Travis, this is a fantastic question. This is just a fantastic question, Travis. Lots of people wonder this. Lots of people see me do it, and they're like, what is that guy doing? This guy just loves variables, doesn't he? He just loves his variables that he won't write the word white or FFF. He has to use a token. He's a maniac, okay? Let's go, let's do BG. Let's do, so you can see it, all right? Now let's go background of white. God, that takes care of it, doesn't it? Doesn't that take care of it? You know, there's another way to take care of it, is that right there. But there is, guys, listen to this carefully. There is a very big difference between these things, okay? This is a next level technique. And I'm not being facetious. This makes this box compatible with color scheme changes, like dark mode and light mode, whereas this is incompatible with color scheme. So if you are gonna go dark light ever in your life, do not do this. You have to do this. You have to. No exceptions, okay? So this, you might as well just use it at all times because it's the safest value to use. You don't want to do this route because now you're going to be, I mean, imagine doing this 100 times on your site. And then the client's like, oh, I heard about this dark mode, light mode. We'd really love that to be added to our site. And you're like, fuck. Can't do it now, right? Or it's just going to be a real pain in the ass. So yeah, just use var white, var black, just var everything. You never go wrong with a var. Never go wrong with a var. All right, let's see. What token do I use for border width on a div? Another great question. My bordered div, okay? Let's go with width of 200 pixels. Height, I cannot type today. Whenever it's cold outside, affects my typing. That's what I blame. That's what I say anyway. That's what I like to have as my excuse. Let's go background of white. You guessed it. Okay. Let's go border. Check this out. Border of border. That's next level. That's next level. Okay. All right. We're gonna go look at this on the front end. You can see that there is a light gray border on that card. This is going to bring us into the territory of borders and dividers and border framework, right? And I also, while I'm here, by the way, let's go border radius of radius, save, okay? Let's go back to the front end. All right, so I'm going to go to borders and dividers. Borders, okay, look at this. Okay, there's a border width setting right here. Now, some of these aren't live previewable at the moment. We're still improving some of this live preview stuff. But I'm going to see down here that my primary border style is the dark variant, okay? That is live previewable, okay? Check that. So you are essentially, if you think about let's think about the logic here, right? When you see borders used on a website, do you see a gazillion different border styles, or is it like the same border style over and over and over again? Maybe there's a dark one, maybe there's a light one, but there's kind of a border style for the site. Well, that is what is going on right here, okay? So you're setting up, what is my border style for the website? So maybe you're saying on this website, the border width is 2 pixels at all times. We're gonna use solid borders, and we are going to use like, I can go black trans 30 or something like that. This is gonna be I'm not saying this looks good, I'm just saying this is our border style for this website. And by default, we're gonna have dark borders, but we are gonna have a light version that we could apply. And maybe that's gonna be white trans 20. It's also gonna be 5 pixels or a 5 pixel radius, a 2 pixel width. It's gonna be solid. It's gonna be all the same things. We're just gonna change the color, okay? And then the border radius, like maybe we say on this website in particular, our general radius for things is 15 pixels, okay? So I have just configured my border system for this website, right? Which means that I can very easily and consistently apply borders anywhere. Okay, so let's go back and let's refresh the builder so it has all those things updated for it. All right, so look how easy it was for me to apply the border style. So if I was not using like a border framework, I would go border and I would go, what's that width we're using again? I think it's like 2 pixels. Okay. And I think we're using solid colored borders. Fuck, what was the value of the border color? Was it trans 30? Were we using trans 20? Was it trans 50? Well, let me stop what I'm doing. Let me go find another border. Let me inspect it. Let me look. No. None of that game. That's a terrible game to be playing, right? You say, I want a border. Which one? Just the one. Just the one. That's what I just want the border. That's what I want, my border style, right? And it gets it. It gets it. You don't have to think about it. What was the radius again? I don't know. I don't care. It's just a radius. I don't care about values. And then by the way, if the values ever need to change, remember, like what is Bricks doing? You know what, Bricks? How about no? All right, let's go to the front end. What if the value ever needs to change? You went 2 pixels solid? You went 2 pixels everywhere? You did that everywhere on the site you just built? Because I don't know about you, but anytime I need to change stuff, I just go, I just do stuff like this. And then every border on my site that has that is now going to receive the new border styling for this website. That looks terrible. Looks like a terrible coupon in an old black and white newspaper, but you get the point, right? I now have global control over this. Let's go back to solid. Let's go 1.5 pixels. I mean, we can do whatever we want. We just have a party here, okay? So now if I'm in a dark situation and I need the light border, I can always get the light border. Here's how you do it, right? Let me show you the different variations that we have and the flexibility that we have, okay? Just once everything is frameworked and tokenized, the amount of control you have is astronomical. So if I wanted the light one, I could just say light. I could just add the word light to it. Now I'm gonna have the light version. If I wanted the dark version, I could just add it. If you don't know which version is the default, it doesn't just say dark then, just say light then, it doesn't matter, right? The difference is if you change the global border style from dark to light, these will not change because you're explicitly telling this one to be dark. You're explicitly telling it to be light. If you just do this, it will use whatever the default is, and if the default changes, it'll change too, okay? So that's kind of the difference between those, but you could also break it down like this. You could say border width, border style, border style. I still don't care what the values are, but I'm able to break it down like this. I have radius, so width, style, and then border color. And then it would be border color light or border color dark or whatever, okay? So you can use them as like partials, which is nice. But then you know what you can also do? On my border div, you can just go border radius. Well, you could redefine the radius value, or you could just reset the, yeah, that's what you would do, radius. Okay, so on just my border div, I can go 2M. So this card gets the 2M radius, unlike everything else on my website. There are some times you would want to do that. Now, if you want a concentric radius, a true concentric radius, which are also a huge pain in the ass to create. Nobody wants to do that, but in ACSS, you could just say, I would just like a concentric radius, please. And now I get a concentric radius. And now when I put something inside of my card, which actually has the real radius, right? Like this dude right here, okay? Now I've redefined radius on this card, which you don't want to do when you're doing, oh, actually I didn't, I took it away, okay? Let's go here. We don't need that because it should already have it, okay? We just need to, let's save. Let's refresh. Padding. Let's see what the padding is doing. There's a padding issue here. Padding is all sides. Okay, Bricks is, what are you doing to the padding? Why is there no, or why is this image positioned the way that it is? How about we display grid? Let's just see what's going on. Place items in the center. Okay, fine, whatever. Okay, so you see that this has a normal radius. There's something going on with the padding or something. This has a normal radius. This has a radius calculated as the radius plus the padding divided by 2. That's the formula for concentric radius. But it's a pain in the ass. Or you could just say, I want a concentric radius, and there you go, and it's done. So there's another little tidbit to just pull out of nowhere. Okay, let's see. Does the ACSS card framework inverted border included will be integrated with etch components? How would they work? It would just work like I showed you in the example. You would just turn the card into a component and then do the inverted radius inside of the component, and it would just be part of the component. So that would be good to go there. Okay. Is there a way to auto grow section height according to isBG's image height? You don't want to do that. You don't want to do, you don't want, you would not want to do that. You want the content inside the container to dictate the height of the container. If you try to set a height on it or restrict the height based on the height of an irrelevant element like a background image, you can create overflow problems with the content. You can create seemingly like spacing issues. Here, I'll give you an example. Height 50, BG primary. Okay, I'm gonna stick. I just want it to be a bright box so you can clearly see what's going on here. So we'll just go. Actually, we can just do this with headings. We'll just throw a heading in here. And we will say, let's see, just duplicate a bunch. See how the box grows? Because when I do height 50, it's actually using min height, okay? It does that to prevent overflows. But if I came in here and for some reason I was like, well, my background image is 500 pixels high, okay, and I set the height of the container to that, this will happen. The height of the container needs to be dictated by the content inside of it, right? To prevent overflows and all that kind of stuff. So now you could set a min height relative to that. The problem is that an absolutely positioned element has no height. Or at least its height does not affect other things around it. So there's no way to make that work. And in practically speaking, you really never need it to work like that. Important question. Will I be able to use plugins written for Bricks Builder in Etch? No, unless they're built for Etch. But Etch is going to have an API. Third-party developers are welcome to create whatever they want to create for it. Is Etch just around the corner? I haven't purchased bricks yet. Do I think I should wait for Etch? I don't want to waste money if I don't have to. I mean, it depends on when you need to build things, but like, and what you need to build. Like brochure sites will be ready in Etch as soon as components and templating is done. We're working on that right now. I don't have a time, I can't put a promise of a timeline on it, but we don't think it's going to be, I don't want it to be too long. I mean, I told my team in like March, April, May, like the soonest I can start doing videos with Etch, that's when I want to do them. I don't want to wait till June, July, August, September. I don't want to wait till 2026. I want to do it now, right? I'm like a kid in a can, like, mom, I want it now, okay? I'm doing that to them every day. So I want it just as badly as you want it. That's kind of the story there. So yeah, it's gonna be as soon as possible, right? Will the ACSS cheat sheet be updated? It's up to date. It's up to date. It's actually, it is now actually dynamically created based on the JSON file that controls the rest of the dashboard. So it's fairly, pretty much automatically up to date at all times. Can you show ACF to load more images? I have $95 display. Okay, well, we're not doing ACF stuff right now. You can do that on an Inner Circle live stream or a Geary.co live stream. Are we at the 2 hour mark yet? 11, 12, 1, 2. Fuck, we're at, yeah, 1. Okay, we're at 2 hours. Okay, so that's fine. It's cool. We got one question left. Can you please show where all the vars are? I'm new to bricks and trying to find these. The vars are in the cheat sheet right here. Cheat sheet, variables, here they all are. And you could search within variables to find your variable. By the way, you can find recipes here. You can find recipes here. I don't know if this one, I think, let's see, AutoGrid. Yeah, this appears, it is up to date. Yeah, this is all JSON driven. So as soon as a recipe exists, it gets put in here automatically. Here's your flex row, flex column. This is another one I put in here. Nobody likes, like if I'm working on a div, it's obviously not display flex by default, right? So if I'm writing, I was doing this on the full site build. I'm like, why am I doing this like a chump? I'm like, display, flex direction, column. Like, you have to write that 1,000,000 times on a website build. Nobody wants to do that. Why don't you just go flex column? Just be done with it. Just be done with it. It's so nice, right? And we got all these little shortcuts. So you're writing CSS, you get used to them. It's almost like you're using a utility class, but it expands out into the real CSS. It's just phenomenal, phenomenal stuff. For footers, is it best practice to use menu elements? You can if you don't know how to. I don't. I just create a menu. A menu is very easy to create. Nav, block, block, block. Okay. Nav. This is the list that goes in the nav. This is the list item. Actually, we don't need that one. If we don't want icons, well, actually with icon support, you can just use a link element. Usually you want to have a link, right? But this actually supports icons, so you don't need that other block. So now you go list item goes in the list, drag it in there. And so now you have your nav. Watch this. You go HTML, nav, HTML, list, HTML, list item. Text link is already a link. Link it to whatever you want to link it to. You can also query loop these, okay? It'll actually build your nav for you. You query loop the list item. And if you had like services or something like that, which I don't have, I don't have anything in here that I can actually query loop. But if you did, it would just build your navigation for you. And then you come to then of course you could just style the list. Like this is where you go display flex row, blah, 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 blah. Or you can use grid, you can use whatever you want to do. But if we go to the front end and look, you have yourself a nav. Look at this, here's a nav. Here's the unordered list. Here's the LI. Here's the A inside of it. It's all proper. If this is not the main nav, you go over to style, you go down to attributes, and you go ARIA label, and you do something like, legal. Now it's your legal nav. It'll announce it as the legal navigation, which you could put in like your privacy policy, all this stuff. It's very easy to whip that up. If you know the HTML, it's very easy to whip those kind of things up. Menus come with a lot of hassle. Because if I add a menu, let's add a menu now. You use the menu element, nav menu, okay? My God, I'm forced to go through this nightmare. This is an absolute atrocity, right? Nobody wants to do this, but this is what you're forced into when you use this element. And then half that shit doesn't even respond to the classes that you've attached here. I like simple, clean, I don't want all that other nonsense. Okay? So that's my answer there. The incompatibility with bricks will be a problem, at least for me. After a big investment in the bricks ecosystem, there's no way to make that. No. You don't, it's like I just talked about. Sites that are built. You just leave them alone. You change your things for the future. You change, like now we do this, now we're doing this. And the sites that we have in the past, just stay the sites in the past. It's fine. It's not a problem. We've done this multiple times as an agency. It's not a problem. And this is the kind of the be all end all. Because etch gives you what has never been given to you before. The thing that you always wanted and needed is now being given to you. You don't have to think about other options. This is not even, etch is not in a category it's not even comparable to Elementor or Divi or Bricks. It's not comparable. The things that it does and the way that it does it is just a completely different paradigm, completely unrestricted, complete and total freedom. It also alleviates you from needing to interact all that much with WP admin, which is archaic and outdated. It writes everything you do to the block editor automatically, so it liberates your data, unlike any other page builder. It is the thing that you just switch to. It's a no-brainer. It's like, no, this is the standard now in WordPress. There's no reason to entertain any other option. And these are going to be clearly seen in the dramatic differences. And then when all of the stuff you enjoy in automatic CSS right now comes to it, like AutoBIM, which is going to be 2.0'd, so AutoBIM 2.0, var calc wrapping, all the Sass, the instant processing of Sass, internal variables, the list goes on and on and on, access to HTML, data attributes, styling custom attributes. There's a laundry list of shit that you cannot do in any, you can copy HTML. You could copy an entire page of HTML and just paste it into Etch. What other builder do you do that with? Nothing. So it's a completely new paradigm. People that now code in Visual Studio or whatever these other, Sublime, whatever they happen to be using, who are normally working this split screen situation, or they are forced into a dual screen situation, and they're always saving to see the updates, saving, refresh, save, refresh. They are now gonna wanna use Etch, because everything is now happening on the canvas, everything, and you're not blocked from writing the code. You're not blocked from accessing the code. You can free write HTML, free write JavaScript, free write PHP. You could do all this stuff. It is a true visual development environment. You could do everything there. If you don't want to write the code, you don't have to write the code. You don't have to see the code if you don't want to see the code. If you don't want to use CSS inputs, if you don't, like this in bricks. If I just want a CSS first workflow, I still got to deal with all this shit right here. Getting in my way all the time, right? That won't happen in Etch. If you opt for a CSS first workflow, it's essentially a CSS only workflow. You're just writing all your CSS and it's all in one place. And we already talked about the media queries being nested and the canvas not being linked to the media queries that you're writing so that you could freely do whatever you want to do with the canvas while you write your code. Infinite canvas, the ability to see multiple things going on at once on your website, zooming out, zooming back in. Everything is reimagined. Everything is the way that it should have been. Everything is the next era. This is why it's called a next generation environment for doing your work. It is not like, oh, okay, we've learned a lot from these other builders, and we're gonna do most of the things like they do it, and then just a few things a little bit better. That is not the situation that we're in. Etch said, I think all these other builders have just dramatically done this the wrong way. And here's why they have. It's not just an opinion. They started from a wrong premise. If you start with the wrong premise, you will arrive at the wrong conclusion, right? And so the premise they started from, every builder for WordPress has started from the premise of how do we make it palatable for people off the street? How do we make this look easy to outsiders, to people who don't know what they're doing? That was the premise of every builder. And the premise of Etch is, how do we build the best possible environment for the modern era for people who know what they're doing? Every tool you use right now is not designed for you. It is designed for people who don't know what they're doing. Etch is the first tool that says, no. We are designing this for people who actually know what they're doing. We want them to enjoy it. We want it to make sense to their brain and to their history of all that they know about web design. When you go into Etch, things are called what they're supposed to be called because it respects the language of web design. It doesn't say, oh, no, we got to find cute names for everything. Because, people off the street, they don't know what they're doing. They don't know what a div is. Let's call it a block. Oh, they don't know what display flex is. Let's call it a row. They don't know what flex column and this, that. Let's just turn the row into a column. Groups, just groups. They don't know what grid is. Let's make it a group and we'll just call it grid on the inside. This is insanity. What they've done. This is a bastardization of our industry that they've done. By the way, the more they make it palatable for people who don't know what they're doing, and the more AI comes onto the scene, like, hey, AI can just do it for you. The industry is has been in a race to the bottom, a dramatic race to the bottom. And by the way, if you're still hooked on like, oh, I just like Elementor just seems so easy to me. I've been in it for 5 years. You are about to be replaced, my friend. AI is going to replace you. Anybody doing bottom of the barrel work with bottom of the barrel tools is the first to go. You are on the chopping block. The people who know what they're doing, who do professional work in professional tools, will be the people who survive AI because AI can't do that. AI can't framework it for you. AI can't do all the things the way you need it to be done. AI can do the base level stuff, and then the client goes, yeah, I'm okay with essentially, junk. I'm okay with that. All the clients, if the client's okay with junk, they're going to AI it themselves, and you're out of the picture. And all you can produce for them is essentially junk, because you use a junk builder and you use junk techniques, right? Styling everything at the ID level, nothing is tokenized, nothing is anything, maintainability is not. AI can do that. AI can produce junk. So if you produce junk, why do we need you, right? It's the people who are qualified and the people who actually know what they're doing and use professional. Those are going to be the people who are sought out because they're going to come to you and they're going to be like, we tried this with AI. It's not getting the job done. We actually need a professional for this. Hey, here I am. Nice to meet you, right? That's the kind of situation you want to be in. So you have to abandon these. Your livelihood depends on you abandoning these lay builders, as I call them. That's what they are. They're lay builders, right? These layman-focused builders, you got to abandon those as quickly as possible. AI is coming for everybody that uses those, all right? And you got to start doing this professional work, professional workflow, professional tools. Maybe you can stick around for even longer, all right? We got to get out of here. Any plans for Etch versioning with Git? Yes. Thank you for asking. Yet another thing that no other builder has done or even thought of doing. Why? Because lay people don't use Git. Lay people don't need version control. Lay people, see, it wasn't designed for you, but Etch is designed for you. These are now it'll be in the enterprise package. You need the enterprise plan for that, okay? Yes, it will likely, that's the goal. That is the goal, is to write things to a file system that can be backed up in Git. Will Etch have a menu builder? Yes, of course, absolutely. Please show us fade out. Never used that. I'm just wondering. Okay, we'll have to do it on the next one. We're over time here. Okay. I'll do it. Quit twisting my arm. No more questions. We're done with questions. This is the last one right here. We're gonna see if we can combine isBG. By the way, you can also combine isBG with content grid now, and it doesn't break. Okay, it doesn't break because it now knows, oh, I'm a isBG inside of a content grid. I'm supposed to take up the full width. Okay, it knows that now, so that's a compatibility thing. Let's go height 50. Okay, so we can go fade, right? Look at this. We can fade the block axis. We can fade the inline axis. We can fade just the top. We can fade the right. We can fade the bottom. We can fade the left. Let's just fade the bottom. God, that's so easy. What, I mean, is it just fading it to white? Is that what it's doing? I don't know. Let's see. Let's go to here. Let's go body. Let's go background of red. Does it, oh, it fades into the redness. It doesn't even depend on the background color. That's fantastic. That's fantastic stuff. That would have taken a while to do, you know? But I just did it here with a little bit of a little class. What if I wanted to do it on this entire section and I had a custom class? My faded section. Okay, let's go here. I don't even remember what it is, but yeah, we'll just guess. Fade bottom. Done deal. Done deal. Min height, 600 pixels. Done. Done. Okay. Can I change the fade amount? Oh yeah, you can. You can definitely change the fade amount. You can just adjust this little variable right here. You can just play to your hearts. It's like a little play box. It's like a little playground. Okay. Okay. I got to get out of here. I love you guys. I'll be back soon. Again, we try to aim to do this every single month. Make sure you're subscribed to the channel. Let me visit the chat real quick. I've been stuck in this questions log. Let me just visit the chat real quick. Yeah, don't call it edge. That's how we know if you know what you're talking about or you don't know. It's one of those insider things. If somebody says edge, you're like, I don't think you're on the inside. I think you're on the outside there. Okay. Let's see. Preach, I already said 5 years ago, you need to replace all the builders and if need be, WordPress itself. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Okay. All right. It looks good. Looks good. Will you switch 100% to using Etch for content online? What do you mean for content online, Ruben? I'm not sure what you mean. I would have answered your question, Ruben, in the Q&A period, but it doesn't have a hashtag in front of it. Tisk. Okay. Let's see. Okay. I was just catching up on the chat. You guys don't have to stay here if you don't want to. Just catching up on the chat. Once I turn off the stream, chat goes poof, and I can't. I gotta wait until the recording is available and they add it back. I don't ever go check it. It's a nightmare. Okay. Looks good. Looks good. All right. I'll be signing up for the